Just Some Podcast Media.
The thoughts and opinions on Just Some Podcast are of the hosts and guests and do not represent the views of organizations that employ them or they volunteer for. They are also not responsible for spontaneous black holes or nuclear wars that may occur. You have been warned.
Welcome to a special bonus episode of Just Some Podcast. This has been, sorry, Tom, I just wanted to try that once.
No, that was awesome. I was just sitting here, and usually people that can't see this, like we can see each other. He usually gives me like a thumbs up or like gives me the producer point, and then he just started talking. It was awesome. Great job, Ben. So, Ben, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. We wanted to just take a few minutes here and talk about our new podcast that is out now. It's available on all of our podcast hosting devices. I mean, it's on Apple, it's on Google, it's on Stitcher, it's on Spotify. It's just about anywhere you can find it. And that is, of course, David and Nurse Papa.
Yeah, Ben, super excited about his show. It is a distinct departure from what people usually hear from us, which is two guys having a conversation, doing some education sometimes, just having some fun a lot of the times, and having guests on the show, etc. But Nurse Papa is a different take.
Yeah, he takes the parenting aspect, takes the oncology nurse aspect, and kind of the way that those intertwine along with relationships. And so for every episode, he talks about kind of a story that has happened in his life with as far as parenting. And then the second half of the episode is actually a letter that was written by someone who subscribed to his blog, or hopefully will now be listeners, that he takes the time to discuss and answer, often in a, not only does he give the advice, but he kind of does it in a comical, kind of fun way. And we're big fans.
We are big fans, and not only comical, and he is a very funny guy.
Yeah.
Small hand ukulele player. I mean, what else do you expect? But he also has a unique perspective that I think is good for parents to hear. Hell, if you're a teenager or something going through it, like, listen to what parents may be seeing, or if you're wondering, like, what should I do about something? He offers a really great way of looking at everything, and it's in a way that only a person that does his job, I think, can give that spin. I mean, I think he gives great, just general advice as a general good guy, but to have that background as a pediatric oncology nurse and deal every day with sick children or children, that have cancer, it just gives it a whole new view.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. I actually wrote him a letter, after we kind of started talking and we had him on the show, just because getting children to virtually learn is a pain in the ass. I don't know if anybody out there has gotten to experience that yet. But I did kind of reach out to David, and I was like, hey, man, like, you got any tips on this? Because, he does have that different set of eyes, and sometimes that's a good thing to look at or look through, I guess. So, if you're out there and you want to reach out to him, of course, it's David at nursepappathebook.com. That'll be in the show notes below also.
Yeah, and if you can't remember all that and you're an avid listener of the show, get a hold of us, and we can probably get you in the right direction, or just reply and give you his information. Like I said, great guy, and it's a totally different show. Like, just listening to it, it is a really highly produced show. It's more like if you've listened to Lore or the Tales podcast, stuff like that. It's like more in that vein. So if you're looking for something to complement Just Some Podcast, or hell, if you just love his podcast, either way, you're going to find something that you can really enjoy and listen to, and hopefully bring something from it.
And I think most of his episodes are going to run about 20 minutes, which, I mean, for some people, that's a nice commute time. And so, you pop it on when you're leaving work, and you get to kind of chuckle along with, as he's talking about Cheetos or Spidey senses, or, I mean, all kinds of different stuff. And so what we did, Tom, is we pulled a portion of his first episode, and we're going to play that now as kind of a welcome to Nurse Papa, to let everybody kind of get a little taste, a little teaser. And then, of course, if you like what you hear, subscribe to Nurse Papa, the podcast. Don't forget, he's also writing a book, which will be out, I think, in August-ish timeframe.
Yeah, and he does have a website and everything that, you can peruse, look through. And Ben and I got, like, the background. We got to see or listen. How are we seeing with our earballs? We got to listen to some of the episodes coming out, and I will tell you, one of the letters that he reads involves a subject, well, I guess I'll just say it, circumcision, that you wouldn't normally think could be funny, but
Yeah.
man, this guy finds a way. I not only did I laugh till I almost cried, but then I replayed it so that my wife could hear it. Like, it was that funny. I was like, no, you have to listen to this. It's incredible. So I think our listeners and probably many more are going to really enjoy his show.
I would agree. So enjoy this teaser, Nurse Papa. Make sure you subscribe to his show. Make sure you drop those ratings and reviews in on his show too, because he needs the love over there on his show. And of course, you can continue to describe to us. Wow.
Yeah, they could describe us all they want.
Or they can subscribe to us too, either one. So enjoy this little teaser here.
Nurse Papa is brought to you by Just Some Podcast Media. Dun, da, da, da. The views on this podcast are those solely of the host and do not represent the views or opinions of any other institution.
Welcome to Nurse Papa, a podcast for parents from the heart and mind of a pediatric nurse and father. In each episode, I'll be taking a deep dive into a story of parenthood, and hopefully, come out on the other side with a greater understanding of what makes kids and their parents tick. At the conclusion of each episode, I'll tackle a parenting question from one of my loyal listeners, in a segment I like to call Dear Nurse Papa. So, without further ado, let's get started.
Hi, Papa. What are you doing?
Oh, hi, sweetheart. I'm recording the first episode of the Nurse Papa podcast.
A podcast? We're getting a cat?
Kinda, but with less hair on the couch.
Can I stay with you, Papa?
Sure. Can you be super quiet?
Yes, Papa.
Okay. Shh. The sport of parenting. If parenting were a sport, which would it be? And are parents the team owners or the players? Just this morning, my 3-year-old son threw a shoe at my head. We were all out together at a restaurant when it happened. I was not prepared for the footwear assault, but I probably should have been. What surprised me most was not that my dear son chose to beam me with one of his gross, mud-encrusted shoes, but rather that he passed up many more enticing and accessible objects to maim me with. Directly within his toddler reach was a crumb-speckled butter knife, a plastic cup filled with primary-colored crayons, a full glass of water, and a very aerodynamically designed salt shaker. Yes, the kind that looks like a rocket just dying to be launched into the heavens. Or a dad's face. None of these shiny objects were good enough for my boy. Instead, he committed to the extraordinary effort of slyly removing one of his beloved PJ Masks-themed shoes beneath the table, and once freed from his chubby foot, threw it with all his might directly at my face. I had been distracted helping his older sister with her own coloring dilemmas and was not paying attention to him at that moment. Even so, my papa sense must have been on point. Just before that size 8 reached my cheek, my free hand plucked it from the air. Parenthood has bestowed upon me reflexes like a jungle cat. I have no idea why my son decided that this was a good idea. From recent past experience, he would have expected a swift and angry response. I also don't know what slight on my part had inspired such a bold move. It could have been when I told him an hour beforehand that he couldn't run wildly into the street, or even earlier when I proclaimed that he must eat breakfast before he ate a treat. It could have been both of these things, or neither of them. It might have been a, "Don't do that please," that had occurred 5 minutes beforehand. A forgettable incident which happened the month before last, or even his perceived anticipation of something I was just about to do to him, which inspired his aggression towards me. It could have been the way the cold breeze was blowing that early morning, or perhaps the slightly perceived angle of the Earth as it orbits around our sun, which inspired his violence. Nobody except the boy will ever know, and he ain't talking.
Papa, I don't know.
As his dad, I usually possess very little understanding of where this impulsive behavior arises from, and even less of a clue of what to do about it when it does rear its angry little shoe in my face. If parenting were to be considered a sport, it would most certainly be classified as a full contact one. Fully physical, fully emotional, fully psychological, fully frustrating, fully tiresome, fully joyful, full contact. And we all have suffered some amount of family PTSD, even though we wear our helmets, especially on our scooters. And if parenting is indeed a sport, and my family of 4 humans, the members that comprise a team, I'm often left wondering which role is mine, and which are the roles of the other team members. At one smug point in this journey of raising kids, I was more than confident that my wife and I were co-owners of this crazy kid team, and the kids, our athlete subordinates. After all, we started this organization from nothing. We brought both these babies up from the G League, all the way up to the pros. We were in charge. We called the shots. Hell, we bankrolled this posse with money, sweat, tears, and thousands of compostable diapers. Yeah! It was ours. As the kids came fully online, though, they became more aware of the world and aware of us too. It became clear that we parents were certainly not in charge, at least not all of the time, and definitely not as we had planned to be. Half the time, our kids run the show. We bend to their needs and stipulations, we answer to their strident orders and desultory demands. So, if we aren't team owners, perhaps we are coaches. My wife and I possess a combined 84 years experience playing this game of life. We've seen a lot. What works, what doesn't, what hasn't even been tried. We've read the game rulebook forwards and backwards. Clearly, we have many lessons to teach our pediatric players about how this game is played.
Oh.
This role feels right. Almost. There are many moments when my ability and patience to impart know-how matches up well with my children's comprehension and willingness to take it all in. More often than not, though, my didactic pleas are lost to the ether in an otherwise cold and dark universe. There is too much crying, fighting, whining, huffing, and puffing for any of us to have a meaningful exchange. These kids don't play the game the way I taught them. They storm the field naked and without padding. They run backwards around the bases. They play the way they want to, the way that feels right to them. It feels like I'm just here to patch the boo-boos, wipe the boogers, brush off the butts, and clean off the semi-permanent ink. What's even more striking is that it often seems that our kids have become our coaches. Just by being themselves, they reveal truths we have asked for, and many which we have not. They teach us lessons which we would otherwise never have learned, or even have been inquisitive about.
I got an idea!
So, if we aren't owners, and nothing in our contract stipulates our roles as coaches, then I guess we parents are merely players on the same dysfunctional team as our kids play for, albeit grizzled veterans with something to teach. This feels true. This feels right. We all sit in the same dugout, calling the plays together, yelling at the ref when the game does not go our way, and celebrating each other when it does. There is indeed a pecking order. How could there not be? But it is a generous and modular one. As soon as one team member realizes that he or she is on top, the order changes, and we all have to adjust and move on. Family is a sport that prepares kids for the game of life that is to come for them. Where else can they strike out, break a bat on their knee, kick dust in the ump's face, get ejected from the game, and still be invited back for more fun and fracture in the next game in just a few hours? Remember, a family game is almost always a doubleheader. This grizzled veteran player is still learning more about the sport of parenting every game he plays. When my son threw his shoe at my face, I did not react as he probably thought or hoped I would. After all, that's what he wants, right? A reaction? To get under my skin? To show me who's boss? To remind me that he exists and that no matter what shit he pulls, I won't leave him in the dust. But I didn't get angry this time. Instead, I showed him a new play that I had been working on for quite a while and had only pulled off a few times in secret. As I held that smelly shoe with a hole in it aloft in my hand, I stared right back into his beautiful blue eyes, a shade we both view the world through, and asked him without much hope for a reply, "Why did you throw your shoe at Papa?" I love you, Boo. Don't hurt me. Please? My son flashed me a naughty smile back, but said nothing. Even so, it felt like an understanding between us which did not exist before, now somehow did. It was a big moment for me, one in which I could feel my heart and my brain expanding in new directions, but I did not have much time to savor it. Once again, my papa sense tingled up and down my spine, alerting me to impending trouble. I ducked quickly to the side as my son's other shoe hurled past my nose like a baseball line drive that no shortstop would ever possibly catch. This was going to be a very long game of parenting. Thank you so much for listening to this special episode of Nurse Papa. Are you a parent struggling to do best by your child? Is there a particular quandary of parenthood that has got your goat? If so, write to Nurse Papa. Send all your questions to David at nursepapathebook.com, and I just might feature your letter in my next episode. Remember, Nurse Papa is also an upcoming book about my experiences as a pediatric nurse and father. For more information, please visit nursepapathebook.com. Stay safe out there and keep on parenting.